Word Balloon is brought to you by the League of Word Balloon Listeners.
Our report details how advertising through television transforms strangers to your product into acquaintances, and acquaintances into friends, and friends into customers. You could almost say, as a result, that television puts into every living room a selling machine.
Welcome back, everybody. Time again for Kinescope, the show. Yeah, relax, kid. It's a look at our the early days of live television. Happy to have everybody back. John Sutchers, Gabe Ardman, Ian Brill, Jeff Parker, and this is going to be a great episode, man. I can't apologize enough for putting everyone through the slog of that Yul Brynner production in our last episode. The good news is we actually have three really interesting shows to talk about, featuring the great Paul Newman. And this is really cool because, in fact, I think we should go in chronological order, guys.
Yeah, I agree.
And apparently, we're going to start with an episode from 1952 of Tales of Tomorrow. We've discussed Tales of Tomorrow in the past. It's a very early sci-fi show. But according to IMDb, Paul Newman's second film credit?
Yeah, or maybe first. It's a little unclear, but it's certainly it's certainly a very early one, and it shows, in the performance too. One of the coolest things, in a way, about watching the three things that the three episodes that we picked is like you really see an evolution in his screen acting over the course of
100%.
And it's, that's exactly why I wanted to do this show, because looking at stuff like that, seeing people who from later in their career develop and become who they eventually are. It's neat. It's interesting.
Couldn't agree more. And again, this is have you guys seen on Letterman? And obviously Letterman and Newman had a great friendship, and I remember seeing a clip of Newman on late night or the Late Show, and them showing a scene from this episode to kind of tease Newman about it and everything. Yeah. So,
and he is very big. Especially for Paul Newman. Like he's such a naturalistic actor in so many ways that, like, him playing big in, especially in the Tales of Tomorrow, and he's not in it that much. Mostly it's about Mr. Drysdale, but it's the bald Mr. Drysdale. But he is. It is interesting that he's giving this kind of very un-Paul Newman-y sort of performance.
But it's not a bit role. He is like the fourth lead,
yes.
You could say.
Yes.
But anyway, it's Ice from Space is the name of it, and essentially it's a very basic sci-fi story. A rocket goes up, but doesn't seem to come down, and there's a big mystery about that. And Mr. Drysdale plays the congressman that wants to get to the bottom of things, and he's constantly hassling the major in charge. Well, you're certainly not your father. You know, your father can handle this. I don't know what your problem is. That's not.
And how old is Mr. Drysdale that he was even interacting with this guy's father? Was it like 1901? I mean, like, what were they like? They were Rough Riders together or something? Like, what? But yeah,
they were.
Like, it feels like. Sorry,
they were part of H.G. Wells' original Men to the Moon. Like,
yes, exactly.
Oh, there you go. That's fantastic.
Exactly.
Sure.
Yes.
Well, eventually the rocket comes down, but in some unexplained weird way, but you just got to go with it. It came down with this block of ice from space, hence the title. Ice.
It's cool though. It feels like The Thing, the Howard Hawks.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
And tragically, we lose. There's such a darkness over this because early on we learn that the amazing Mice Brothers die.
Yeah.
The two mice that they send up in the rocket they don't survive the ice from space. The mice from space is what they should have been called.
Honestly, I checked out at that point, because I just felt like there were mistakes.
Pretty early on.
But a very panicky Paul Newman lets him know, I don't know what's happening, but everything's freezing around the block of ice.
Okay, that first photo you showed, John, of Paul Newman when he's got face. Have you ever seen Paul Newman make that face ever again?
No. No.
Well, keep in mind, it's distorted.
It's his Tucker Carlson face.
Yeah.
Explain that to me again. And why should I hate the Democrats for this?
And in the second photo, I like how, just his attitude in that second photo, like he's bending all the way forward over that desk. He's like, there's none of the Paul Newman cool in this thing.
Well, his job there is to remind people that there are young people in the military, and because everybody else is a geezer.
Everybody's old. Everybody in the show's old.
Well, that literally,
he's got to be young enough for everybody.
Yeah.
This literally is the scene that Letterman pulled to tease Newman about and everything, and it's great because Newman is so like, I know.
Yeah, but also Paul Newman doesn't give a fuck, right? Like that's part of like his charm. It's like he couldn't possibly care less about this shit, right? I mean, not that he didn't care about being a great actor, he obviously did, but just that he's not gonna be fazed by whatever,
Yeah,
but
looking phased is not a thing that Newman ever was going to do.
No.
There's our classic German scientist that we
clearly Werner von Braun.
Yes.
Yes. This is. Well, I guess, obviously Von Braun was part of the program now. This is, again,
John, he was our Nazi.
Yeah, exactly. The right stuff. No, Mr. President.
We had a space program.
Our Germans are better than their Germans. Don't worry.
That guy doesn't let up on it either.
What's that, Ian?
Tom Lehrer wasn't a fan, but everybody else was. If you guys... I don't know if we wanted to go too long without a Tom Lehrer reference.
Yeah,
Werner von Braun, the pride of Huntsville, Alabama, indeed.
Right. Unpack that for our audience, Ian.
Are people not familiar with either?
Well, I'm sure people watching this show are. But
if they're watching Kinescope, then clearly I'm guessing they know. But feel free and fill in the blanks by all means.
If people are not familiar either with German rocket scientist Werner von Braun or music satirist, later UC Santa Cruz math professor Tom Lehrer. Werner von Braun worked for NASA. He was a big part of developing NASA. Before that, he worked for Germany during World War II.
He pioneered the V2 rocket.
Yeah, the V2 rocket, and
that could have won them the war if they had
developed it a little earlier. Absolutely.
Yeah,
and which was it may be I was going to say up in the air. It may be unknown how much Werner von Braun himself was an ideologue, but his work was produced with slave labor frankly.
Yeah, well,
Um,
I mean, he did the shit. Who cares if he's an
Yeah.
ideologue or not? Like, he did the work, so that's all
Yeah,
that
but again,
matters.
it could have been, hey, do the work or we'll kill you. So
Everything I've ever read about von Braun, I love that this just lapsed into us talking about Werner von Braun.
I'm
now.
all for it.
But he inspired this episode. He inspired Michael Gorin.
Yeah, of course.
The actor.
Everything I ever read about von Braun is maybe he wasn't a real ideologue, but he was like, if someone was paying him to work on rockets, that's where.
Right.
That's the thing. And maybe in some ways, not being just like being totally non-committal and just being like, I work for whomever. Maybe in some ways that's worse. Who knows?
Yeah, I would say. I mean, it's certainly bad. I mean, it's not not making any sort of moral sense. I'm sorry. It's just things are going on in the world right now that make it hard not to think about this sort of shit.
I know.
Yeah.
And I would recommend. Oh, and the Tom Lehrer. Tom Lehrer is a musical satirist who was popular in the late 50s, early 60s, and then decided to stop being famous and literally just retired.
Right, but is still with us, by the way.
Yes, he I don't know if he still does, but he taught math and musical theater at UC Santa Cruz.
Yep.
He wrote a song. I think the song is just called Werner von Braun, which pretty brutally in some places criticizes him. I think the key line being Werner von Braun, he says, the rockets, I make sure the rockets go up. Where they go down, that's not my business.
Okay, well, I think that's a pretty fair assessment of it.
I do want to recommend, I think I quite enjoy the show From All Mankind on Apple Plus, and the first few episodes, like Werner von Braun's a character, and they deal with that. And in that, because that's a version, an alternate history where Russia gets to the moon first, and there's this the U.S. space program is much
different,
stronger, gets developed a lot more. And in that version, actually, like Werner von Braun has to like testify before Congress, and there's a whole scandal.
His protege becomes one of the lead characters in For All Mankind. But no, it's an excellent series. I absolutely love that series. It's my favorite Apple TV show, hands down. So,
well, as far as Tales of Tomorrow is concerned,
yes,
I think, yeah, go ahead.
Because I can't remember, was Kurt Vonnegut's story Ice 9 out at this point, or is?
That's a very good question.
Yeah,
Google.
Ian can answer that by simply reaching across.
Ian is on it.
It's called Cat's Cradle.
Cat's Cradle's the collection, right?
Yeah,
it's in that book. Yeah.
No, Cat's Cradle is a novel, and Ice 9 is a thing in Cat's Cradle.
Oh, that's right. Okay. I'm sorry, boy. I really got it.
Cat's Cradle was concept. Cat's Cradle was was published in 1963.
So much later.
So he might have been working. He was probably working on it before. But
Kurt Vonnegut is a giant hack, ripped off this show. We've figured that out. Jeez.
I'm tired of Vonnegut's little sayings about, "Hey, babies, be nice to yourself," whatever.
Kurt Vonnegut Jr.
The show with Paul Newman.
We're speaking about Kurt Vonnegut Jr. We have no truck with the old man.
Okay. Fair enough.
But do we spoil the ending of this little tale?
Yeah, go for it. Why not?
Again,
70 years.
Mr. Drysdale riding the major who's in charge of the mission very hard, and oh my God, now this missile is landed with this block of ice that's making everything freeze. So the missile goes back up in the air with the major to send it off to explode in space, and therefore avert whatever ice age the alien ice is bringing. And this is all of them kind of sadly contemplating what the major was to sacrifice. And even Mr. Drysdale goes, well, he even did one better than his father.
Yeah.
Miss Hathaway, take a letter.
He's my favorite character on that show, by the way.
God, Beverly Hillbillies?
Well, on the Hillbillies, the toupee does 90% of the acting.
No,
so you got to give him
I
credit in this. Not
no,
having
no,
it.
no.
so funny
I
on
think
the
he's.
show.
I think he's really good. I mean, he's a guy who, you know, he shows up in a million things, you know, and like he's all, and like he look,
He's always great.
he has the ability to play straight. He has the ability to play that broad comedy on there, you know, toupee or no toupee. You know, he's in some Alfred Hitchcock Presents. He's in a million things, right? And
I was just being mean.
yeah, no, John. Here's the deal. You can't come down on Mr. Drysdale like this, all right? Like just because the man was, you know, just because he was a bald man,
follically
doesn't-
challenged. Yes,
Yes,
I understand.
Anyways,
Raymond Bailey.
so
But a fun throwaway show, and that's
Yeah,
truly what I love about.
Yeah, it's
Tales.
good,
I
actually.
mean, honestly, I would recommend for anyone who wants to see what science fiction looked like on television, pre Twilight Zone, pre Outer Limits, even pre science fiction theater. I mean, this is the earliest example that I know of a regular weekly sci-fi show, and I think it's fascinating because the low budget and it's just an interesting show.
and certainly more so than the kind of kiddie shows that, you know,
right.
You know,
You're right about that.
Yeah,
those were,
I mean, you know,
God, what was that
it's
interminable thing we watched that just I couldn't follow the logic of?
what was
Captain
it?
Video?
Is that
Captain
Captain
Video.
Video? Yeah. Oh my
Jeez,
God.
you're right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cut to the western.
Yeah. But
I
yeah.
get haunted by that.
Yeah. Oh, it was bad. But this is at least, you know, it's an anthology show. They're telling individual little stories. Oh, I don't know. I mean, I love it. I love anthology shows. I mean, like I mean, obviously that's a huge part of what we cover here. So, you know,
And they're all on YouTube. The whole season. I mean, it was only one season, but they're all on YouTube. So
Is it one thing where it's like there was one season, but there was like 50 episodes?
yeah,
seems like it.
310 episodes, but it's just one season. Like,
Absolutely.
to be how it went back then.
Oops. So should we move on to our next show?
Yeah. So next
Which is we're back to Danger, which we covered in our first episode, I believe, didn't we? Our second episode.
It was very early.
Casino Royale. Yeah, that was from Danger as well.
And Jimmy Bond.
This is Knife in the Dark. That's the name of the show. It was adapted by Rod Serling. It was directed by John Frankenheimer, and it had a great cast. I mean, I'm a big fan of this. Once again, there's Paul.
Yeah,
Paul's, it's a prison show. Very weird that and I guess again from a budgetary staging point of view, it was like a communal, like big jail cell that had like a bunch of bunk beds rather than individual cells. And Newman is go ahead.
No, it's just how you could tell the story too, because I mean, you need them interacting. You need him to be able to be vulnerable to the other people. If he's locked in his cell, then you can only
they don't have time to set up a courtyard set and get to it and things like that.
Yeah,
but a great show because you got Paul, and then you got Inspector Luger himself, the great James Gregory.
Yeah,
and
he plays a dick in this thing. Like he is so like he's great.
He's so good.
And Newman is great in this. And actually, I think this episode is great. I think I really enjoyed it. Like it's so well made, you know, by Frankenheimer. It's got a Rod Serling script. It's like, you know, this is the kind of thing. And look, Frankenheimer is basically like my favorite director in this live TV stuff. He's always stylish. He gets great performances out of people. And this should be a throwaway show that feels so much more exciting and interesting because of all the people involved in it.
Yeah, I agree. And damn it, I'm trying to scramble and get the guy's name who plays Newman's bunkmate because that guy's
Burke.
Yes. Say it again.
Walter Burke.
Walter Burke is an excellent character actor.
He's great. He's in the Outer Limits. Go ahead, John.
No, I wasn't talking. I think Gabe was talking. Please
go ahead, Gabe.
I was basically going to say the same thing about the Outer Limits, and you know that he was in that in the episode with the you know where they put the things on your back, right?
Don Gordon, wasn't it a Don Gordon episode?
With a Don Gordon,
Don Gordon and Neil Hamilton.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, and what's his name? Family Feud.
Richard Dawson.
Richard Dawson's in.
He played like the you know secretary guy to the senator or whatever. yeah, that was a fun episode. And he's also just in a bunch of like noir movies from like early in his career.
Is he in all the president or in all the King's Men? Is
yes,
he Broderick
he is.
Crawford's
He
little
is. He is.
dude?
That's
Yeah.
one of like his first movies as well.
Boy.
Yeah. No, terrific actor. Great in this. I mean, that's the thing. This is, God, seriously, Gabe, I'm so glad you like, I don't know how you found this one, but really I was expecting,
It was
first
an
of all, I was
accident.
like,
Yeah.
okay, because really this really was, I think, the gem of the three shows.
I agree. Yeah. It actually, I found it like literally just looking up Paul Newman live TV on YouTube, and it comes up with no name of what the show is or anything like that, and nothing really indicating anything about it. So like, I was like, oh, well, maybe this thing too. This turned out to be my favorite one of them. It's just really tightly done, and I don't know, it was just good. And all the
It
cast
starts
is so
off
good.
with a murder in a shower in a prison.
Yeah. It's
I
good
got the
stuff.
photo.
That's a good strong start.
Yeah.
Right here. Yeah, that's what happens. I mean, again, called Knife in the Dark. This victim is there. He's Paul Newman's best friend. Prison guard discovers him, and everyone in the cell block kind of knows it's James Gregory who obviously killed him. But nobody wants to. Nobody wants to squeal, basically.
And also, Newman,
go ahead.
That Newman is going to get out of, he's going to get parole in like 31 days or something like that, and and all he has to do is last that long. But Gregory's gonna knife him if he falls asleep, so he has to try to stay awake for 30 days straight or whatever. It's good stuff.
What's interesting about that whole sequence is there's like montage, like dream effects going on.
Yeah.
This is like live TV.
There's a big crazy dream sequence in it that also is
so good.
There's a lot. It gets a little Freudian there. Like there's a lot of he's gonna get you with his knife. He's gonna get you with his knife. I mean, it within the dream sequence, it gets a little much, but it's also ambitious and fun.
100%, and I love the fact that literally the calendar is hanging over his head.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's really on the nose, but again, for live TV, you appreciate that,
and
it's just reminding you.
Gives such a good performance in this. Paul Newman is given is Paul Newman by this point, right? And he's like, I mean, he's still a little broader than what we would think of normally, but
sure.
But still, it's that Frankenheimer with his wide lenses right in people's face, and like really working together with these actors, and really and for something that probably had very little time for rehearsal and and camera blocking and everything compared to like those later Playhouse 90s and stuff. It's because this was much less status. This is an earlier thing before those prestige things they all did.
Right. This is where Frankenheimer cut its teeth before getting to the prestige shows.
Yeah, and
Serling
too. Yeah,
Serling too, and also the fact I love Lumet was also a big Danger director, and again, this was just a meat and potatoes weekly anthology half-hour show as opposed to the hour and 90-minute shows and stuff. I love that we have a classic kind of cell block knife kind of scene right here and everything. No, it was fun. It was really great.
I like the caring, understanding warden who you.
Yes, that was. Yeah,
like
I think the warden is
the one good warden.
He's in love with Paul Newman. Like, I mean, maybe it's not in a romantic, but that guy loves Paul Newman.
Yeah.
Well, it's Paul Newman.
Yeah,
I
know. I understand.
Look,
he's inexplicably beautiful.
Look at that guy. Like, come on.
And also, it should be noted for fans of the movie The Manchurian Candidate, like myself, John Frankenheimer and James Gregory would reunite on that movie.
Yeah, that's true.
It's true.
Yeah.
And what I forgot to put up was he wasn't Urko. What was his name in Beneath the Planet of the Apes? He was the general.
Oh, General Ursus.
Ursus.
Yeah. The only good human is a dead human, Bonnie. And of course, we know and love him as Inspector Luger in the 1970s as Barney Miller's superior.
Mm-hmm.
Always great. Always a great character actor.
Definitely.
And again, I'm glad you mentioned Manchurian Candidate, Ian, because he's terrific as Angela Lansbury's kind of Senator McCarthy's sort of husband and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he gives Heinz Ketchup's 57 its biggest promotion ever.
There are 57 communists working for the government today.
But should we mention that there is a Kinescope mystery to Knife in the Dark? Something that bowled me over when I saw this, and if anyone knows what's up with this, so credits are going by, John Frankenheimer, Rod Serling.
It ain't him.
That's what. But who is
the audio?
But who
is
only
it?
has one
Stan Lee.
IMDb credit? It says associate producer Stan Lee. I'm going like, what? And I'm like, well, obviously this is a different Stan Lee than the Stan Lee we know and love, the guitar player for the Dickies.
And different from the other guy too. But yeah, no, I mean like that. Who is it though? Who is this? This
he only has
Stan Lee?
he only has one IMDb credit, which is this. It's so. What's up?
I have a theory, and this theory could be blown apart by my utter ignorance of the life of Stan Lee. Stanley Lieber, right?
Yeah.
He saw this, and that's how he chose his name. That's what I think.
That's a good guess.
No, I don't think so. I think he obviously wasn't he Stan Lee prior to this.
I don't know. I can't actually remember.
In the timely years, wasn't he still Stan Lee?
It's Atlas, and it's a little bit after this. So, and that's when he takes the name, I believe.
Oh, I thought going back to, him doing the 2-page filler, stuff. He was Stan Lee even back then, but I could be wrong.
Could be.
What year is this again?
Sure.
What year is
54.
This is 54. Yeah.
This is right on the edge. Like Stan was a little kid straight out of school at this point.
No. He was
because he was
working
in the war,
for Timely in the 40s during before before he was in the war and everything. So
I mean, he was young still in the 54, but at this point he was young, running Atlas.
I'm going by Kirby's definition of him playing panpipe, sitting on a filing cabinet.
He played the Ocarina.
It's just such a puzzling thing. Yes, Ocarina. It's just such a puzzling thing because, I always think about this every time Kirby refers to Stan Lee as Stanley, because you cannot say Stanley Lee. So it's the most baffling thing in the world to actually be named Stan Lee, because who would ever do that?
I would.
So is this another person who chose that pseudonym?
That's my assumption.
Who is that person? Why did they choose a pseudonym for this particular?
What happened to his career after his one credit?
Yeah, not a lot. He changed his name to Stan Lee.
Are you thinking it's take my name off these credits? So this is my.
I don't want to be associated with knife in my back or whatever it was called. Yeah,
right.
Lamp onto my feet.
I don't know. It's a mystery. It's not a mystery we're going to solve, but we'll put it out there, Robert Stack style, to our audience to call into the tip line. We'll follow up on it in a later episode.
I have no idea why Michael is asking the question. Why was Robert Redford Death in the Twilight Zone? The answer is yes. I know he isn't Paul, but he almost is. All right, there you go. That's
okay.
Why.
Sure. Yes, they are
exactly.
separate people, but apart from that, yes.
They did make movies together. You are correct,
yes.
Michael. Very good.
And you're also correct that Paul Newman was never on the Twilight Zone.
Yeah. He just wants us to talk about Butch and Sundance instead.
Yeah.
And the Sting. Yeah. But I can appreciate. And then do we have it's the next one that we have the other cameo or the other credit that Ian was very proper to flag. But this is really, again, it's a tight half-hour show, very impressive.
Yeah.
And it's got a ton of great, including associate director Stan Lee, but it's got a great credit list both behind the camera and in front of the camera. So it's pretty
cool.
And
so if I highly recommend checking this out. And the only way I found it was just looking for Paul Newman, and either Paul Newman in live TV or maybe just Paul Newman bang the drum slowly or something like that. And it just comes up as a generically named Paul Newman thing. But
I believe it's on Archive, like archive.org.
Okay. Yeah.
I keep forgetting to check that for some of the episodes we talk about. I always go to YouTube, but no, you're right, Ian. And there are tons of great kinescopes at archive.org. So yeah, agreed.
All right.
Well, anyway, we can move on
just-
to our final one, which is the most prestigious of the productions we're talking about, but kind of obviously a downer as well. The original Bang the Drum Slowly from 1956. I love Paul is the narrator and obviously the main character of the thing. I love that he's narrating it. It reminded me of when we talked about Andy Griffith in No Time for Sergeants, in that first person narrative. Then it would cut to the story,
right?
And
this is, I mean, it's similar to No Time for Sergeants as well, because it has this very stylized set where we're supposed to imagine that it's and it's within the context of it. They are flagging this. They're saying like these sets are stylized, and we can you're going to have
because we only have so much room. It's kind of neat. He's breaking the fourth wall. To explain the limitations of the production. I agree. I think that's kind of neat.
And apparently half of like the windows are made out of steel because this was the U.S. Steel Hour. So that they explained during the commercials. But
another great co-star, Albert Salmi, one of my favorite character actors. Who, man, there's a crazy personal life. We can talk about it later.
I don't really know it.
I'll look up the Wikipedia to get the facts correct. But another great character actor. We've seen him in The Twilight Zone as well, and also Studio One and other great shows of the era. But for people who don't know the story, it's about Newman and his roommate. They're baseball players, and Albert Salmi, not the brightest bulb in the box. But discovers that he's dying of a he's got a terminal disease, and he's a third string catcher.
They don't say what the disease is in the.
It's probably cancer. They don't say.
Yeah, but they go out of their way not to tell you exactly what it is.
But it's and he's a third string catcher, and is hanging on to his job for dear life regardless. And then when Newman discovers that he's terminal, tries to help him out and at least save him for the last months of his life to be able to do what he wants to do, and that is still play baseball and be part of the
team. If you're Paul Newman's pal in any of these things, man, you're essentially Dirty Harry's partner.
Yes. It's real. It's really true.
Sad but true.
But yeah, Paul Newman, he has a lot of fun with the ungrammar that is it Mark Harris described his writing as for this story, and it literally is inside baseball with some good bits. So John must have appreciated it, and
it's based on a novel, right? I mean, he wrote kind of a series of novels. Mark Harris wrote a series of novels about baseball. This is like the second one. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And then he wrote the screenplay for the later one.
I've never seen it, but
I watched it for this. I had never seen it before.
The manager really rides Salmi hard, but Newman,
the manager's much worse than the prison warden.
Yes.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Oh yes.
Just switch jobs.
Yeah. But but also Newman is like the hot pitcher on the team, and kind of uses that leverage to protect Salmi and keep him part of the team and everything. Also, another subplot is Newman's married and has a pregnant wife, and they're expecting their first child. It's a shame that it's because it has that Bull Durham feel in terms of team camaraderie, ups and downs and everything. But at the same, and I mean the players are kind of shitty to Salmi to begin with because he's such a knucklehead. Mm-hmm. But God, I just really, again, I think it's a great ensemble piece, and it just bums me out that it is this sad story of Salmi slowly dying wrapped around this baseball camaraderie. So
I love the bit where Salmi figures out that he could steal second by the movement that the pitcher's doing, and the manager just doesn't believe he could figure that out and goes over and starts yelling at Paul Newman because he must have told him.
Mm-hmm.
He still doesn't believe him. He still tell me first next time.
one of the reasons, like, so one of the things we keep talking about on Kinescope is how do the filmmakers overcome the limitations of the form. So there's a story about baseball. I don't believe you ever see anyone actually play baseball. You see them in the dugout, watching them.
Yeah.
The real, I would say, well, there's obviously a lot of drama, but I would say one kind of form of competition that you do see is Paul Newman's character is battling over his contract all the time, and like that becomes the game more than an actual baseball game,
Right?
And
Sure,
that the decisions he makes about his contract are influenced by this secret that he has with Bruce, his buddy, and but it's so interesting that to have a story about sports, and a lot of it takes place in business offices.
Honestly, I think that's actually a really strong thing about this. I think.
Yeah.
I don't think that. I think that it also, I don't particularly have anything against sports movies, but I think that it shows a limitation of sports movies, that it feels like you have to be showing the sport, and it's in the sport, whatever's going on, in that is only valuable if it's about the question of whether they're winning or losing or whatever, and has a limited dramatic value, right? And so not having the fact that they can't have any of that in this, I think in a lot of ways makes it stronger. I watched the 70s movie, which I'd always thought was a TV movie because it looks like
I don't know why I thought that.
TV movie. Well, because it looks like one.
It does.
Yeah,
I mean,
it really does.
But it was not a TV movie. But it doesn't help that that they spend the time showing them play. Oh my god! It also, I don't think it was a very good movie. I think that was kind of,
and weirdly the guys on this look more likely to be athletes than the guys in the movie.
Yeah.
I agree with that. Absolutely.
And it also just like the crux of this, that that he's trying to protect his friend, and that it just develops better in the TV show. He doesn't know immediately from the very beginning. He finds out. He tries to help him. It develops along the way. In the movie, it's just like from the very beginning, and it's a slog with just it doesn't have any narrative thrust to it. You know what the setup is, and it just slowly kind of meanders its way through. It's just not so good.
I saw the 70s one first and was intrigued because it's Vincent Gardenia as the manager, and of course De Niro as the catcher, and it's
obviously nobody has to say how great an actor Robert De Niro is. He's one of the greatest actors we got, right? But he is.
I love that we got that,
especially in this moment. Yes.
Well, it's like Ron Newman. It's like Newman in 52. It's undeveloped.
Except that it is and it isn't. He's playing. Partly he's hobbled by having the playing a Southern accent, which has never been something he's been able to pull off.
That blew my mind that they kept him, like the character is a Southerner in the TV show, and I assume the book. But I thought, okay, when they cast De Niro, he'll be like a Bowery boy, Brooklyn. It's like, nope.
He's just given a really unconvincing performance of a.
He probably thought when he did Cape Fear, okay, this time I'm going to do it.
I got it.
Right. Missed it again. Yeah.
Now, I hope I'm going to get the right shot. I got to find him.
Oh, that's right. We got to talk about Clue.
Well, I couldn't find Clue Gallagher, or however you say his name.
Gallagher. But in that photo, in the back, one of the greatest actors of all, Burt Remsen. One of my favorite actors, up in the top in the back there. Love that guy. He's in tons of 70s stuff. He's amazing in California Split, the Robert Altman movie. He's like,
he's like Altman's guy, right?
Yeah. He's in a bunch of those movies of that era. He's just one of my favorite characters.
He's great.
And also Arch Johnson here. I'm a big fan of Arch Johnson, who always delivers in those sub kind of character roles as well. Mm-hmm. And I thought I mean, really was one of the guys that is really shitting on Salmi early on. And then when Newman tells him, hey, the guy's dying, totally does a 180. And again, that's the sweetness of even this production in particular of it, where, again, God, they have this big party for Salmi, and hey, it's your birthday. Well, that's not my birthday. Well, what the hell? We're going to celebrate anyway.
Yeah.
Although the
We've
arc
hired
of
women.
Yes.
with hookers, exactly.
Yes, exactly. The arc
Celebrate
of
with hookers, everybody.
The arc of the story, though, is that yes, he's dying and stuff, but mainly he just doesn't want people to be nice to him because it makes him uncomfortable.
Yes.
And in the end, they're all too nice to him, and he dies.
Yeah.
There he is. Okay.
As far as I can tell.
Papard, yeah.
I couldn't find Clue, but I could find George Papard.
Right.
And that's amazing that we got young George Papard in this kind of nothing role, but there he is.
He also sings he's the one singing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Streets of Laredo or whatever song that is. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God. In the 70s one, the score that is all a sad version of Streets of Laredo is just horrendous. It's so cloying. I just, oh my God. It is interesting watching the two of them and I know that I tend to champion these TV versions more than the movies, but in this case, it really is true that there's an I say immediacy like too much, but there is a quality to the TV one, and that scene you were pointing out about him telling the other player about the friend who's sick. It plays so much better in the show than it does, and so much more human and relatable in the show. In the 70s movie, it's kind of like, oh shit, yeah, that guy's gonna die. Okay, I guess I won't die. But it just everything plays like they're on Quaaludes.
Well, just like No Time for Sergeants and Patterns, the shorter versions are tighter.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
they work better. They really do work better and stuff. So no, exactly. If there's any sort of curiosity about Bang the Drum Slowly, I would definitely point them to the Newman production versus the De Niro production. No question.
And I actually thought
Klugman doesn't show up anywhere though.
Especially because I think that Jack Klugman is an underrated dramatic actor in a way that we don't talk about enough on this show. But nonetheless, I do think that Paul Newman's performance is pretty good in this. It's tough a little bit to take Paul Newman playing a little dumb. Like, he's not a dumb guy in this. He's a scheming sort of guy, but he's a little low status, compared to the normal Paul Newman, shtick. But he's good in it. And I really thought on this. I went into the 70s one assuming that De Niro was going to play the Paul Newman role, not the dumb guy. And him playing that I could have bought.
But this is the same year that Somebody Up There Likes Me came out, 56. And, Rocky Graziano.
Totally. Yeah.
So it is kind of consistent with other roles that he was doing at the time. And fact, there's a 60s movie that Newman made that everyone hated. I was curious, and I even read Ebert's review of it, the contemporary review he did of it. It's called The Secret or the Private War of Harry Frigg, or The Secret War of Harry Frigg. Yeah. By the way, James Gregory also in that movie with to pull back James Gregory. But it's a very silly movie about a bunch of generals that are in a prisoner of war camp that they're in an Italian villa that's being run by Vito Scotti. And Paul Newman plays like a private who is a prison escapee genius that has been escaping army, being in the U.S. stockade for, not being a regular GI. So he is sent to free these generals. And it's a very silly, wacky little thing, but it's very consistent with knucklehead Paul Newman roles versus, the great roles like The Sting and Butch Cassidy and the like.
You know what? I'm gonna completely reverse myself on this, because there's also, if you're going to watch a movie from 1973, don't watch that terrible, remake of Bang the Drum Slowly. Watch Pocket Money. Stuart Rosenberg directed it. Lee Marvin and Paul Newman are in it. It is, and it's written by Terrence Malick. It's kind of a comedy written by Terrence Malick.
Wow.
They both kind of play dumb guys, and Paul Newman plays a dumb guy, and they're like, I know people don't love this movie, but this is I do, and there are just moments in it that are so inspired that they're worth the whole thing. But I do kind of love a movie about dumb guys with a scheme who think that they're going to pull it off, and they definitely don't. And it's very early 70s. It's certainly very Shaggy, but in a way that's much more enjoyable than Bang the Drum.
Is it like Mikey and Ricky?
It's not that Shaggy. It's
And once again, Eagle Eye Ian points out that the manager, what's the manager's name, Ian?
Oh, the actor is Rudy Bond.
Rudy Bond, who later on, once again, the Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3 is the police commissioner.
Yes, Michael Gorin, who's in Tales of Tomorrow, playing the Werner von Braun character, is the old man in Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3, one of the hostages, who has the great line when they talk about, the ransom. He asks, like, well, what's the ransom? I want to know how much I'm worth. And then, yes, Rudy Bond plays one of the many city officials who is quite more annoyed than worried about all these this hostage situation going on in the subway. People, if you haven't seen the original Taking Pelham 1, 2, 3,
you haven't lived.
Directed by Joe Sargent, starring Walter Matthau, Jerry Stiller,
Martin Balsam,
little Ben Stiller hiding in the back seat of the car,
and oh God, what's his Robert Shaw.
Robert Shaw. It is one of the best. Well, is it a heist movie? It's one of the best crime movies, and I will put this up against any film, maybe ever, maybe the best last shot of any movie ever. You watch this movie, you tell me a movie with a better last shot.
And it's just a super fun movie. It has all its grittiness and all that sort of stuff, but really it is just a movie that is incredibly entertaining. You could watch it any damn time.
Yeah. I always describe it as dirty Barney. It's an R-rated episode of Barney Miller. That's what it is.
The great thing about, amongst the many great things, by the way, I'm happy to do a Taking a Pelham 1, 2, 3 podcast.
We can go there.
Taking a podcast 1, 2, 3.
Taking a podcast 1, 2, 3. Yes.
Kino Lorber, by the way, put out a fantastic Blu-ray of the film. But one of the great things about Taking Pelham 1, 2, 3 is it's normal guys versus terrorists. And when I say normal guys, I mean Walter Matthau has a big, wide yellow tie, and he is the hero of this movie.
Yeah.
No other movie has a hero who's in a schlubby suit and a wide yellow tie. Looks like he just like someone was pitting the road and accidentally got him. It's great.
Well, again, it has that world-weary cop formula of Barney Miller in this tense terrorist situation, and that's why we were talking off the air about Pelham 1, 2, 3 because we can't help it. Kind of like our fascination with Liberty Valance. The remakes they did, and I have to say, I haven't. I know
didn't remake it, John. It never happened. That was just caught
3 times.
Never happened.
It's been made 3 times. Well, it's not. They're not good.
2, 4. We don't.
The two remakes are certainly not good. But really, despite the second one, it was a television movie with Edward James Olmos. The final version, more recently, Denzel Washington in the Walter Matthau role, which immediately is strike one because Denzel can't be schlubby. I'm sorry.
Yeah, because
Denzel.
He is he's a movie star and he has the gravitas that's always going to be there. He's never going to be that schlubby guy. He's never going to be the underdog type character. Yeah.
Right. So I mean it just doesn't work on that way. And it's a shame because as Ian was saying, and I agree with him, Tony Scott directed the Denzel version, and I like Tony Scott. I think he was an effective director most of the time, or at least batting 500, I would say.
Sometimes.
It
depended on the material, depended on the project, depended on the material.
I remember, I'm a massive Matthau fan as well. And when they announced that, I was talking to Jeff Loeb on the podcast, and it's like, he goes, "Hey, they're remaking your favorite movie, Pelham 1, 2, 3." I'm like, "With who?" And he's like, "Denzel," and I'm like, "Why?"
Because Denzel in the Robert Shaw role I'd be
Could have
into.
worked.
Yeah, that would
Could have
work.
worked.
I don't know if I'd be into John Travolta in the Walter Matthau. If it was like,
Oh my
Paul
God!
Giamatti.
Somebody's in the subway. We got to do something.
but
here.
it was Paul Giamatti as Robert Shaw. By the way, the Reservoir Dogs trope of calling characters on a heist Mr. Blue, like after colors, came from this movie.
Yep.
Oh wait, hold the phone. You're saying that Quentin Tarantino appropriated things from
Well,
another movie?
Hector
Roger
Elizondo, fantastic.
Hector Elizondo is great. The guy who played the neighbor in Home Improvement is great.
Yeah.
One
One of my favorite things about the movie is the way they universally establish everyone does the New York Times crossword. Like, just the heroes, the normal people on the subway, the terrorists, they're all working the crossword at any given time.
And I know this is high.
Gesundheit.
I know this is maybe high praise, and a lot of people will have arguments. And they'll think, why is a fucking kid who's from LA saying this? I think this is the best New York City movie ever. And there's a lot of great ones. This is the best one.
I kind of agree.
Yeah.
I haven't seen every one, but I'm sure of it.
Okay,
Well,
I don't
actually-
believe in bests. I don't believe in rankings. So
Well,
I'm going to opt out.
Another movie I would compare it to, and it's decades earlier, but another great classic New York movie would be the Humphrey Bogart, William Demarest comedy All Through the Night, where
that is a great movie.
And that's New York gangsters versus Nazis, and it's very, very funny and very.
And I'm putting in 1933 King Kong. If we're going to the all-time,
we could talk about this all night. But
That's
there are a
I
lot
like
of great New York movies. But I mean, look, for me, the After Hours, Martin Scorsese's After Hours,
Love it.
By the way, great.
You do a double feature
every decade. Kind
you
of
do a double feature of Taking Pelham 1, 2, 3 in After Hours. You're having a good time.
Sign me up. That would just be a fucking amazing double feature. Yeah,
I completely agree. That's awesome. Well, and again, they each and All Through the Night as well. They represent these great eras of New York very specifically. Mm-hmm. So
we should.
Okay. Go ahead.
Did anyone notice this about Paul Newman's performance at the end of Bang the Drum Slowly? It sounds like this was a mistake, but in a way, I think it makes his performance even better. So he has this big monologue at the end that after his friend Bruce dies,
right?
And during it, he's quoting like Bruce talking to him, like his last words, and he's saying like, and then Bruce says to me, he says, Bruce, I mean Arthur, and so he misquotes like Bruce is calling him Bruce.
Yeah,
I'm thinking like, this is live television. Did he just make a mistake? But does not lose a step. Like it's still he is, and he's super emotional in that scene, and it does not trip him up.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
this is. I noticed that.
Paul Newman.
Yes, I agree, and I noticed that too. But it just made it feel natural. It made it feel
because he's breaking up.
Yeah.
I feel compelled to give the postscript of Albert Salmi's life.
Oh yes.
So he married a woman named Roberta Pollock Tapper in 1964. In 1983, Salmi went into semi-retirement, only occasionally taking acting roles. In early February of 1990, Albert and Roberta separated. He moved into their Idaho condominium while Roberta remained in the family home in Spokane, Washington. She filed for divorce in February. She claimed that her husband was an alcoholic who physically abused her when he drank. She also claimed that Salmi threatened her on several occasions, and she was fearful that he might kill her. Roberta Salmi later took out a restraining order against Albert Salmi. In response to her claims in court documents, Salmi denied physically abusing Roberta and blamed their split on her emotional issues. This is all from Wikipedia. April of that year, Salmi and his estranged wife were found dead in their Spokane home by a friend who stopped by to check on her. According to newspaper accounts, Salmi fatally shot his wife in the kitchen of her home before shooting himself in an upstairs den. While the police reports state that Roberta's death happened on Sunday of April 22nd, the coroner could not determine when Salmi's death occurred. Yikes.
Jesus,
Thanks
and
for bringing it down.
yeah, and you,
We're having too good a time.
yeah, and you thought bang the drum slowly was too big a bummer. Like,
And it's really this. Salmi was such a great character actor. Go to, wasn't he in Of Late I Think of Cliffordville? That was his Twilight Zone episode, one of them. And he's in a great. It was Studio One. He was in a great Studio One that they have a videotape of. It's called Control Room, and he plays a television director basically having a nervous breakdown while he's shooting a live show and stuff.
Interesting.
And it's
I'd be interested
I'd
be interested in covering that, as long as you promise not to tell the story of the murder suicide again.
I do have.
Can we talk about that Beatles documentary and then get on Mal Evans again? Let's just always
I know. That was my fault. I looked up what happened to Mal Evans, and we should never know.
We should never know.
I do. So we don't go out on that. I do have a Clue Gulager story that.
Oh yeah.
And perhaps everyone in LA who's a bit of a cinephile has a Clue Gulager story. This is mine.
You've certainly been in a movie theater with him if you go to old movies.
Probably maybe more times than I can count.
Yeah.
Clue Gulager, by the way, look up his IMDb. Your head will spin. He's been in so many movies. He's great in a lot of them.
As recently as?
Well, he's still alive. I know he was in the Sean Baker movie Tangerine.
I was going to say Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. He's got a bit.
Oh yes, he's in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I'm such a ditz.
But he's also in like earlier on. He's in that remake of The Killers with Lee Marvin, the Don Siegel one. He plays the other guy, and he plays Ronald Reagan. Yeah.
Ronald Reagan's also.
I know Ronald Reagan plays the bad guy in that one. Yeah.
Were you guys able to spot him in Bang the Drum? I couldn't.
Yeah, he's in the party scene mostly. You can really see him in the party scene. That's about it, though.
Okay.
I couldn't find him.
Yeah, it's there's one shot where he's over Paul Newman's shoulder, but that's kind of the most you see him. Okay. And he just like speaks like when the guys are speaking in the party. He doesn't have like a lot. But he was in a million westerns in the 50s. Yes. Plays the dad in Nightmare on Elm Street 2.
What's your story?
One of his best roles, I think, in one of his best movies is Return of the Living Dead, directed by Dan O'Bannon. Yeah. A movie I love. And they're showing the movie at the Egyptian. This is before Netflix bought it.
When you could go to the Egyptian,
when you could
go inside of it, yes.
Who knows what Netflix is going to do with it? Maybe they're just slowly buying up theaters just to close them down. Maybe that's their grand plan.
I'm sure. Yes, they will buy them all and close them all in order to strengthen their business model. Yes.
Yeah. But this was in those halcyon days. This was 2015, and so Return of the Living Dead is showing, and we're going to have a bunch of the cast, as well as some of the crew. William Stout, the great concept artist, is there. Oh, cool. And many of the actors is there, including good old Clue. And by the way, Clue is like, he goes to like these revival showings at the Egyptian, or when they were at the Egyptian, at the New Beverly. Like he's in some of these movies, but then he's also buying a ticket, and you might see him.
Yeah, he just seems to be a movie fan.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's great. And so they're talking, and then Clue says he's got a big surprise. And then he's going to bring a friend out. What's this? So he goes off to the stage left, and he comes back with his friend, which is a giant inflatable penis. I forgot the name of it, but he gives it a name like Marty or Sparky something, and he has conversations with it, and he gives the I don't know if you would call it a puppet, but he gives it like a high pitched voice and has conversations with it. Oh, it was kind of like Saul Right. What's the hand guy thing?
Senior Wendt.
It was kind of like that, but with a giant inflatable appendage. Now, and the best part of and he's doing this in front of a packed audience and with his cast members to his left. The best reaction to that is the actor Tom Matthews, who plays Freddy. He's the guy, him and James Karen are the ones who are turning into zombies.
Mm-hmm.
Tom is like, while this is going on, he just says into the mic, well, I was really glad I brought my daughter to this so she can see Daddy in a movie.
Well, if you're looking for Clue at the theaters, there you go. There's a
I don't know if he'll always have his props with him, but who knows?
You buy your ticket, you take your chances. So, yeah.
Well, there you go. What an education we learned about Albert Salmi's final fate and Clue Gallagher's love of inflatable penises. This is great.
That's good.
He's not an actor, but he wanted to be a prop comic.
Okay, so that was great. So next week on Kinescope, what are we covering? Oh, we don't have a fucking clue. We didn't talk about this.
No, I'll tell you. I have two candidates to suggest. We can either go heavy drama, and we could do Judgment in Nuremberg.
Okay.
The TV
maybe not this week. Just it feels a little on the nose. I don't know.
For lighter fare, we had talked about it in the past. A live comedy that captured a lot of hearts in the early 50s. The debut on screen of Wally Cox, and that's Mr. Peepers, featuring Wally Cox and Tony Randall.
Yeah, you've threatened Mr. Peepers for this entire time, so I guess I'm just going to give in and say, yes, let's go with Mr. Peepers.
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting.
World War III is going to happen, and we're covering Mr. Peepers.
War, do we want to... Never mind.
Well, if you want to go even lighter, we could do Pinky Lee.
No, let's go with Mr. Peepers. There's maybe a little more to talk about there with the Marlon Brando of it all and everything.
Well, again, I'm open to discussion, gentlemen. We could have the prediction.
No, there's no discussion. We've decided, and by we I mean me.
There you go.
So
there you go.
Let's do Mr. Peepers.
Let's get Mr. Peepers in there. Fantastic. I'm very excited. So, but again, if you want lighter fare, I mean, Bang the Drum certainly has its appeal, but it's kind of a downer. But absolutely watch that episode of Danger, Knife in the Dark.
Yeah,
and
really cool.
And Tales of Tomorrow is silly throwaway, but I always find it interesting.
And they're fast, and you watch a bunch of them.
Yeah,
they're like 30 minutes.
Yeah,
exactly. So, all right, Mr. Peepers next week. Until then, thanks everybody for watching, and adjust those rabbit ears. Take care.
Our report details how advertising through television transforms strangers to your product into acquaintances, and acquaintances into friends, and friends into customers. You could almost say, as a result, that television puts into every living room a selling machine.